Okay, so hi everyone. Uh, Today I have Nathan Ormond. Uh, he's the creator of YouTube channel Digital Gnosis. Would you like to introduce yourself, Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to talk as well. My channel, what I'm known for is kind of my YouTube channel, and maybe slightly fewer people will listen in podcast form to some of the interviews that I record. And I mean, this was just a personal YouTube channel years ago where I uploaded some random things. Then I became a Christian and I used it to upload some things that were associated to that. Then I uploaded a few things to do with apologetics. I ended up deconverting from Christianity and went through a kind of journey with religion and also like philosophy as well, trying to kind of figure out trying to understand religion from that point of view. So a lot of my interviews are centered around like guests whose work that I'm interested in because their work kind of pertains to the questions that I have about theism and reality and so on. And then obviously I also have like kind of more chilled YouTube things as well, where I just host conversations that are kind of open for people to join. So that's broadly how people know me. I'm just finishing up doing a master's degree in philosophy as well, and I've got a background as a software engineer. So that's sort of all about me as a person.
Great. I think your channel, specifically, I think your videos, I think bad apologetics videos, like those 8 hours long ones. I think they are really important. The things that you do with James Fodor are really important, and I think especially some of your recent videos with Lance Bush, and those are something that are like absolutely wonderful. I mean, uh, the thing is, with, like, I suppose my first question to you is going to be, what kind of bands do you like? What kind of music do you like?
Yeah, changing gears. I don't know, like that there's a lot of different music I'm into, right? So um sometimes I like, rather than bands, like hip hop and stuff like that for in the gym or but what weirdly, whenever I squat very specifically, I'll listen to metal. So like I like Metallica, Iron Maiden, stuff like that. Um and then there's a bunch of other stuff that I just listen to on different occasions. Like if I'm
Yeah,
in the shower or something.
yeah. I think I'm more into like post rock these days. I mean, I love Radiohead. I think I talked about
Yeah,
Radiohead a
yeah, you
lot.
said this before. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
How
mean,
much you're into it.
the similar to you, right? Like I listen to all kinds of bands, though not that much metal because they are too loud sometimes, and their drumming is like too much.
That's
They
why I need it for the squats, you see. There's
yeah,
no way to get through those sets without the angry drumming.
yeah. I mean, have you listened to like a band called Godspeed You Black Emperor?
Don't
That's
think I have, no.
that's a very good, very like a kind of triumphant kind of post rock. It's like a kind of epic music kind. Maybe you'll love it while you are like in the gym or stuff. Really good stuff. Yeah. What's your favorite movie, I suppose? That's the second question.
I don't know, like one favorite movie, kind of difficult. I really liked Cloud Atlas, that film that like that pretty much no one else liked. That was really long, but I think it was by James Cameron. That's probably my, like, as an individual movie, like my favorite one. But I tend to like things by Quentin Tarantino or Wes Anderson. I like his films in general, like The Life Aquatica. I really like that.
Yeah, I'm loving some of the recent movies, like by Sam Mendes, like 1917. That was brilliant. Like really fun movies. Its ending was really, I mean, it was really heartwarming, I suppose. The ending of that movie. Yeah, and there's a recent movie I watched. It's called Everything Everywhere All at Once. I highly recommend you to watch that one. That's
Okay.
Absolutely. Like it's just the most brilliant stuff, you know, I have ever like seen or watched. One of the most brilliant, I suppose. Yeah. And this basically segues into like my thinking about like aesthetics and aesthetic value, right? Like objective aesthetics and subjective aesthetics. I mean, I'm personally leaning towards anti-realism about aesthetics and, you know, morality, even though I believe in a loving, compassionate, just God. So that's good. That's an interesting kind of very unorthodox kind of view. I mean, my channel name is, you know, unorthodox theology. So, but still, I kind of want to like think like of objective aesthetics and objective morality, like kind of like imagine myself in their shoes, you know, like uh, take their lens, you know, and see through that lens. And one thing that bothers me about objective aesthetics is that, so suppose like for example, I love some bands which are not critically acclaimed, like Radiohead or something. Like Radiohead gets like pretty much every time they get like tens out of tens, you know, pretty much everyone, like every critic loves them. I think, you know, they really like the way Radiohead like does things. And I mean, yeah, they are experimental, they change their, you know, ways, formula, you know, and stuff. And I mean, I'm cool with that, but it's not, I do not like every single one of their song or something. And I like some of the bands which are like, which get mixed reviews in general. And I'm thinking like, do I need to love only these acclaimed things, like objectively good things? Like, do I need to love these objectively good things and dislike the objectively bad things? Like, what is objective aesthetics really doing, right? Like, so I suppose I want to ask, what do you think about this stuff, you know?
I mean, I tend to think that these sorts of questions are very difficult to answer just because they're sort of not distinguishable from one another empirically, right? So here's, you know, one hypothesis that there are that say it's a fact in reality that like Radiohead is a better band than Pink Floyd or something, right? Let's just say that. And okay, so supposing that's a fact in reality, like the only way that you're going to know, you know, about that fact is through whatever like credences you have about, you know, how good of a band Pink Floyd are, and how good of a band Radiohead are. So in that case, it's kind of like, you know, you might actually make the assessment then that Pink Floyd are a better band and be mistaken, but you'd have absolutely no way of knowing. But then you could kind of thump the table and say, no, like it's an objective fact. And so even if so even if kind of objective values like this really do exist in the world somehow, like independent of our goals, beliefs, and desires, to put it that way, that there's kind of like there's no independent check, as it were. And this isn't to say that it's false, but it's to say that it raises this big question then, when it seems that even if there are these objective values, we kind of get reduced to whatever it is that we believe about them anyway. And so that maybe or there's nothing we could know about the objective fact. We'd just be kind of left with our subjective values that we have anyway, and our beliefs that are formed as the result of those values. And so it's sort of like, well, even if there were such things, they wouldn't really do anything, right? They just kind of sit there. And yeah, so I just have I have a very hard time kind of like motivating those views that claim that there are objective kind of value facts out there, just because I don't see how they would actually like do anything. And I think that even if, you know, I could be a moral, like a value realist for different reasons. You know, maybe, and I'm not an anti-realist either. I'm kind of just agnostic about the whole thing. But if I were a realist, I would have this nagging worry, like, well, I could, like, like I could be just as wrong as the people that I think are wrong. There really isn't like anything I can appeal to. Well, I can appeal to my intuitions, I suppose, and my seemings about these things. And maybe that's just strong enough in some people that it just outweighs any other considerations. And they're like, no, it really is that way. But at least for me, I just don't have seemings or whatever that are that strong and carry, like it really is that way for everyone or something like that. And so that just leaves me in a position where I'm like, well, it seems that, but both theories are kind of adequate to explain what's going on. I don't know how to evaluate all of that. I don't know where I fall. I don't know even that it matters, because even whichever one's true, I'm still going to kind of have the same values that I do. I'm going to still value the same things that I do, even if I think there are real facts out there or there aren't. So
yeah, and I mean, I really liked one of Kane B's video, where he talks about like what really matters. Like the title of the video is "What Really Matters Does Not Matter to Me," and he gives this really great like example. So like, okay, there are these objective facts, right, about values. So Radiohead is like objectively the best band in the world, but the thing is, and like, but I don't care. I mean, I don't care.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I was saying, right? Is like if my personal values differ, even if that's right, it's not going to make a difference to, like, I'm still going to operate on the basis of the values that I have, or that I see or whatever, even if they're wrong. So it's not clear what and someone just appealing to the fact that theirs are objective or something isn't going to do anything for me, because I'm going to be like, well, I still don't value it, right? Like,
yeah, and it's like, I mean, it feels like at best they might force you to like something, but even then, how do you do that? Like, are you going to like edit my brain or something? But that just sounds,
I think they'd have to find some like places where we do agree. So we'd have to like, I think there often are a lot of these cases where we agree, and then maybe try and pick out the features of those cases, and then like go back to the case where we disagree and see if either of the two things we disagree about shares more of the properties with, like a kind of consistency check. So maybe there'd be some hope for success if they could show us, if they could show you that you were kind of being inconsistent in how you were applying, your values or something like that. But otherwise, I can't see that there's really any hope.
yeah, but and even then, right, like suppose, okay, someone like gave me these facts, these things, perhaps I agree in some like background like sense or something, I don't know, someone showed me that, hey, look, you love Linkin Park, but like Linkin Park has like this problem, they are like being really poppy or something, they are like catering to this, and I'm like, I don't care, it just connects with me, like, so what? And I mean, even if I'm inconsistent, I mean, the thing is, I just emotionally connect with them so much that I don't care, I mean, this is the whole thing, right? Like when people talk about like the whole eternal consciousness torture thing, and the whole justification they give, all that train wreck, that metaphysical bullshit, that just sounds to me like their defenses of eternal conscious torture. I just don't care what they're saying sometimes. I mean, not just sometimes, but like all their justification, all that stuff, even the thing with like objective aesthetics, like so like, by the way, before like being moral anti-realist, I was like really convinced by the arguments that like I mean, I've watched their discussions. I'm not like a reader, so I did not read like the whole books by Humer and some of these philosophers, but I watched their discussions, and some of them did convince me. Like one of my first video was my interview with Michael Humer, and I was a moral realist at that time, and intuitionism convinced me. But when I heard Lance and Kane like just speak their minds, and it's like, yeah, they make sense too, you know. So, and I don't know, they make more sense. They connect with me more than like what moral realists are saying. Like, I mean, sure, you have like intuitions about stuff, right? And I agree, like I'm also a compassionate person. I have intuition that, yeah, you should not hurt other people. um, but how does that intuition get me to this objective fact? And the conversation gets into like metaphysics, right? Like realism about the world and stuff. Like, so in your comment section, by the way, with Lance Bush, there was a commentator who was saying that if you reject moral realism, then you reject realism about the external world or something. That kind of argument. I don't know if you read that, but that was the thing that was happening.
Yeah, I saw that. And I think she was in the chat when Lance was talking as well, and I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember really seeing the merits of the argument myself, or at least like it just doesn't work from premises that I agree to, all of them. So
Yeah, I mean, personally, it's weird. It's like on some days I connect with with what she was saying, and on some other days I don't connect with what she was saying. Like currently, when I'm thinking like, okay, look, if like if your premise has like, if you reject moral realism, then you have to reject realism about external world. Well, okay. I mean, I can be a pragmatist. I don't know. Like, maybe this is the problem with the way philosophy is working right now, right? Like there's too much metaphysical stuff that is going on or something. Maybe that's the whole problem. Like, I think Lance is very, I think, not into metaphysics that much, I suppose, but I think the commentators were like saying that Lance is like presupposing correspondence theory of truth or something. And I'm like, I don't know, where are you getting this and why? Like,
well,
so
I guess
weird.
the problem is that the problem with someone giving you an argument that contains the conditional, like if you're a moral anti-realism, then you're committed to anti-realism about the external world. It's that if that argument's being presented to someone who is a moral anti-realist and a realist about the external world, then they just reject that conditional, right? So I mean, because they think that the antecedent is true and the consequent false, so they're just not going to agree that that conditional is true, and then they're not going to agree with the argument, and it's not going to do anything for them, right? It's kind of like, if it's like if we just started off kind of stating what our conclusions were, and I kind of went, well, moral anti-realism is true, and then you went, well, moral anti-realism is false, therefore I win. It's kind of no better giving an argument in that form where one of the premises is just kind of something that you think is false as part of your conclusion.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, so I suppose the thing with like, so when it comes to like God, right? Like assuming God exists and assuming moral realism is true, right? Also aesthetic realism is true. Like let's just grant value realism is true, right? So I was thinking that how does morality and like aesthetics going to intersect, right? Like, so if someone loves a band that is like objectively bad or something, like is God going to like force people to stop loving that band? Again, objectively aesthetically bad, not morally or something. Like, is God going to
Yeah,
force
yeah.
people? Like,
I don't know. This isn't something that I've really thought about that much, but I do know that, a lot of theories tend to put these sort of things together, right? Where a lot of people will talk about things like beauty and goodness, kind of like very similar in some sense, or supervening on similar things. But I don't really know what I mean, like I sort of have that intuition, right? But that intuition could come from a lot of places. It could just come from like a weird prejudice that I have that's unexamined or something. And so it's just going to depend on what the justification for thinking that is. Like if they really can come apart in that way where, someone can make really good music, but it's somehow like morally evil at the same time, then I don't know, like, I mean, I don't think God would force people to listen to that music, whatever, or stop people from listening to that music if they liked it. I would suspect, given the versions of God that I think are right, that whatever the moral thing was that was wrong with the band, that God would like set that right. And then their music could be like really beautiful still. And like whatever the moral thing was that was wrong would be like restored in some sense or fixed.
Yeah, and that I was also thinking, but I was also thinking that, okay, suppose music is like morally okay, like there is no moral problem, but like aesthetically it is objectively bad. So someone like suppose make a sculpture
Right.
made of literal shit, and and I mean, people just dislike it. Seeing it, people dislike,
Well, it seems like that could be morally bad though, in virtue of it sort of like causing dislike, like in virtue of it kind of like harming people or making them have bad feelings and things like that. Or do you see what I mean? Like it might be kind of tied together, like the flourishing or the well-being of people might be tied together with the beauty of the art and it not being like, the smelly poo or whatever.
Yeah, so let's just also assume now that he makes that literal shit sculpture millions of kilometers away from people. He's just an alone guy. He just like really wants to make aesthetically objectively bad sculpture. Again, it's moral neutral because like people are not near to it. I mean, he also like does not really enjoy making it, but he like just has this strong, meta feeling, I suppose, like a meta desire to like make an objectively aesthetically bad sculpture. He just wants to make that. Is God going to force that person to stop? Like, should God force someone to stop? Like, I mean,
It depends what, yeah, I think according to me, rather than God sort of like forcing someone to stop in the sense that they have that desire, I think in a sense their desire stems from a kind of dysfunction or disorder or something, right? And I think that what God would do is in some sense restore that person's restore either the state of affairs that person is situated in or that person's kind of like character and faculties such that they would desire the right sorts of things, so that they would desire the good, right, rather than like bad things.
But personally to me it seems like, I don't know, like first of all it's for reducing the diversity of desires in some sense. I mean, I'm not saying like people should have like morally evil it's kind of like thought police or something.
This is an intro. I get what you're saying. It's like so I think the objection is something like, well, if we look at the set of like all the things that someone could desire, right? That's like a big set. And there's like a couple of subsets of that. Some of them are like good things to desire, and some of them are bad things to desire. And so if you kind of like limit the set to just the good things, you've like limited someone's will, and that's a bad thing. Is that what you're sort of thinking with the objection there?
Yeah, because like my view is that you can limit someone what someone is doing. Like, so for example, if I'm trying to hurt someone, and suppose you are there, you are my friend, right, and you stop me before I hurt someone, but I do have like the desire to hurt them, but you stop me, I think that's good. But if someone edited my desire such that I do not even have the desire to hurt someone, that seems like limiting someone's thoughts, someone's desires, and that just seems really.
Well, I think so. I think there's something going on here that's like the distinction between like could and would. So yeah, like I think someone could have the power to do so, right? And if you kind of took away that power, then you'd be like limiting them as an agent. But I think that the desire it's not like a power to have a desire, and in some sense I think it can be like a lack of a like vices can stem from like a lack of character. For example, like I want to eat health, I have this like second order desire to eat healthily, and when I eat unhealthily, it stems from a kind of, you know, like I don't have the freedom to do the good all the time, sort of like Paul writes, you know, like I do what I do not want and I don't know why, something along those lines. It a lot of the times I think that desiring bad things can stem from a kind of from having like less freedom, because we're sort of like constrained by our vices to choose bad things that we otherwise kind of wouldn't want to.
I mean, I suppose I would agree that psychopaths, extreme psychopaths, like people who are diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, who do not have affective empathy, you know, who do have cognitive empathy to like manipulate people, but do not have affective empathy. And I would want them to have affective empathy, right?
Right.
But what I'm saying is that, look, if someone's desire is morally new, I mean, some desires, very small ones, in my view, can be morally evil, in the sense that, like, someone can be a psychopath, someone does not just have affective empathy, so just they do not feel sadness when they hurt someone, you know. But to desire objectively bad art, like suppose I just desire watching the movie like The Room, you know, it's like it's considered really bad, but people enjoy it. If I desire that movie and someone tells me my desire dysfunctional and I should stop desiring that, there's just, and even like God makes me, like if I'm in heaven and God makes me not desire to watch The Room sometime or something, like that's the thing that kind of seems really just bad to me, like really really disvaluable to me. Like, we want, like, if there are like movies which are like above 5 out of 10, and that's what God tells people to just, no, you are only going to love above 5/10 movies, and God make sure that everyone's personality is such that they love movies that are above 5/10. But what I'm saying is that, why eliminate those movies that are below 5 out of 10, right? Like, why eliminate the desire to make those movies? Again, I'm not saying those movies are like morally evil movies. I'm not saying like allow literal hateful propaganda or something about actual people, not those movies. I'm just talking about like uh, objectively bad movies, you know, assuming objectively bad is like a real thing. So objectively aesthetically bad, I mean. So that's what I'm saying. Like, sure, there are evil vice kind of desires, but God should not limit them that much, in my view, right? Like, you want to be healthy, but you also enjoy fast food. But the thing is, probably that is the case because you enjoy the taste of fast food. Now, if we think that in heaven you can eat all the fast food you want and you'll still be healthy, then why not, right? Why not? So
Yeah, I think I agree with you. If that's the case, then sort of why not? But I think it kind of comes down to whether you know, whether there are kind of qualitative goods of experience, right? So like are there sort of degrees of experiential goods such that, you know, some of those things are like maybe like more carnal experiences or of a lesser degree than like other kinds of experiential goods, like completing a degree versus like eating a hamburger or something like that, right? And I think that if that is right, if you get those kind of like degrees in there, you'd say that, well, what people want to be doing in heaven is like experiencing that highest degree of qualitative good, rather than just kind of like experiencing maybe like those carnal pleasures or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, it also depends, like if they believe carnal pleasures are like wise, like I think Catholics, I mean, I think Catholics
well, not
believe that.
necessarily. Yeah, I think Catholics are quite good with like there's a joke about be a Catholic because you can smoke and drink or something and all that. Like I think that Catholics do have a good kind of balance on these things in their kind of Aristotelian, the Thomistic version of Aristotelian virtue. I think.
Yeah, I mean, they still like say that um, non-procreative sex is wrong, evil, right? So, I mean, will there be like sex in heaven? I think Catholics
Right,
would answer no. But, the people who believe in Islam will answer yes,
right, yeah.
because, and my view is that the pleasures, why those pleasures are wrong in the first place, that's the question, right? If they are morally evil, then sure, God will not allow them to happen in heaven. But I think those pleasures are not evil. And like, even if they are like, suppose you can think of them as low quality pleasures, not evil, but just low quality pleasures. I mean, what's wrong with that? They should be in
Well,
heaven.
yeah.
Everyone enjoys
Well,
them.
I think if we're thinking of pleasure as just a kind of sensation or something, right? There's nothing inherently like right or wrong about just a sensation. It has to be right or wrong in virtue of the like wider context of like facts about if I eat things, how does that kind of change the kind of person that I am, given the regularities of the world that I'm in? And so I think it's the context of all of these surrounding facts in virtue of which, so like am I evaluating things such that I like value this pleasure, more than this like greater good of a long-term thing? But obviously in a world where
Yeah.
the rules are completely different, so to speak, and the
Yeah.
regularities and stuff, then it's not going to be wrong just in virtue of the kind of like pleasure sensation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like, as I said, right? Like, yeah, fast food is like, smoking is bad now because it hurts your health, and people love you, so they don't want you to get cancer, lung cancer or something. uh, yeah, that's understandable. But imagine if heaven had like, smoke all you want, but you will not get cancer or any of the bad stuff, and you can get all that great pleasure of smoking, and there's so I don't have a problem with it. And I think it's also, in some sense, I value, I'm more of an emotional kind of artistic kind of guy, so I do value art, right? And I do value some of the art that has like I mean, not too much, I suppose, not too much of avant-garde stuff, experimental stuff, but I do like when people like push the boundaries of aesthetics, I suppose. Like, perhaps though they are objectively aesthetically bad, but not morally bad, like I do not love some kind of hateful propaganda or something, but I do love if an artist like, you know I mean, if the artist wants to do that. But if like artist like makes a painting out of his own blood, I mean, I mean, like, makes a beautiful painting, right? Like in his depression or something, makes a beautiful painting out of his own blood from his hand or something. Like he cuts his hand and then makes that painting, right?
But this is what I'm kind of saying about those wider contextual factors. So you could say well, look, the skill of the artist to produce this, that's like a good thing. But the kind of depression that that motivated him, that's like a kind of disorder, right? And so you could say, well, so what the best looks like, or what like ultimate goodness looks like in this situation, is this person sort of having their faculties restored in such a way that like they'll want to use these good skills, but in a way where they're not like harming themselves, or it doesn't stem from like disordered desires, and so that they'll want to do it with watercolors or something.
Yeah, but here's what I'm thinking, right? Like, so boxing, boxing, take boxing, or fight, street fights. Sometimes people love pain, right? Now, I do not think those desires are disordered in my view. Like if you love being punched and punching someone, I personally like if I do not find these consensual desires of boxing. Like I do not find some level of consensual harm to be moral. Like I am okay with some
It
level of
depends.
consensual harm. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think it really does depend again, because like I'm fine with it in the sense that, I'm fine with lots of things where there are goods and bads. Like, like I think hospitals are like really, really good things, but there's also like some bads that come along with them, like they damage the environment in various ways, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that, boxing or anything else, it's going to be kind of like that, where like, yeah, there's some good, like the classic kind of redemption stories of people who get into boxing at like low points in their life, and then it gives them drive and purpose, and they can put their life together in a particular kind of way. Like those things are good, but then the kind of CTE that everyone's getting, and then when they're in their 50s, they're slurring their words, like that's bad, and it's like ideally you'd be able to like separate the two, or
that's what I'm talking about, right? Like in heaven, if you did not get CTE, but you enjoyed being punched.
Right. Yeah, I think that would probably be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
As long as you weren't motivated, as long as the pain wasn't like motivating in a way that you'd made yourself like a really angry, wrathful person who needs to get like hit in order to be motivated. Because then it seems like, you're engaging in it for disordered reasons then, rather than just for like the beauty of the motion or to be in a flow state, whatever.
I mean, sometimes people like pain. That's just how I view it. Like, have you played like Dark Souls and some of these like very hard video games?
No, I've not played that.
Yeah, so like people love frustration. For like people would like do like 90, like lots of tries, lots of frustration, and like to get a sense of satisfaction, right? And frustration is a part, in some like pain is a part.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That kind of enjoyment, I suppose. Again, I'm not saying that, because there is a certain extent to where people can tolerate that pain, and above that, things just become more traumatic, So that's what I was saying. And
okay, yeah, I see.
And the things like my view, I mean, I'm an anti-realist about aesthetics and morality, but still I do believe that there are going to be some convergence about what people can do and cannot do. And my position is in general to allow people to have some freedom to somewhat hurt themselves, not literally like kill themselves or something, but people can sometimes hurt themselves if that's the kind of life that they want to live. Like if someone like tells me, look, I love boxing so much that even if I die at the age of 60, I don't care. Like I just love boxing so much. And like, I don't want to stop that person, like if that's what you love, man, I mean, sure, I cannot stop you, and I'm not going to stop you. Although, I mean, I do wish that you didn't die at the age of 60, but yeah. So
I do tend to think that in a lot of these cases, though, if you kind of dig down deep enough, there are going to be like questionable motives behind things. Like, if you ask a lot of people who are in like those position of athletes, like why they want to devote all their time and resources towards like doing that rather than something else. Well, part of it might be that they really like it, but part of it might be that they really like, the attention and getting praise and being the center of it, and that could be kind of like narcissistic in a way and not good for them, or it could be that they could devote themselves to something that would actually, where they'd be able to flourish more and they'd be able to contribute to the flourishing of other people more, but they're so wrapped up in themselves and desiring the praise from, desiring being like idolized by people, but desirous to be idolized by people for doing this thing, that they neglect doing something else. And I think there are complicated considerations in these situations, and it's difficult to
that's possible,
tease all of them out.
Yeah, that's possible, but I was more thinking like in terms of like playing like video games and being like frustrated, like again playing alone, not like
I get what you mean in those but in those cases still, it still sort of seems to me that it would be better, you know, if like the cognitive capacities of the people who are frustrated by like Dark Souls or whatever were frustrated by like trying to solve problems in biology or something that could, you know, like cure diseases or so it seems like
Yeah.
maybe there's like a weighing up of or maybe it's like a contrastive thing of like, you know, what they could have otherwise done with that same effort and intent or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, still, I mean, personally, I give people freedom to do what they want in general. Like, I do not compare like what could have happened if they like devoted their time in like doing mathematics and being frustrated by that, or like doing like medicine and like getting a cure of cancer. Like, I do not do those sorts of comparisons where like if all these people who are like playing video games, or if all these people who are like doing boxing and like they devoted so much of their time to like cancer research. I mean, yes, you are correct. Like the world would be much more like people would be able to live, there would be less suffering, I suppose, due to cancer. But I think I like when people have different sorts of personalities, right? Like some people enjoy Dark Souls, some people enjoy boxing, some people enjoy
Yeah.
cancer research, like researching on cancer and like trying to find the cures of these diseases. Like some people like philosophy, some people like art, some people like entertainment, some people just like engineering and stuff like that. So I want to give people like freedom, to love these sorts of things, and not restrict them based on I mean, interestingly, I'm also like a consequentialist, and some consequentialists would literally say that everyone should like become a finance manager and like earn so much money so that they can donate to like poor people and make the world a better place. It's like utilitarian is like considered like a very demanding sort of morality, but I do not think consequentialism, in my view, is that demanding. Or yeah, so I suppose we should move on from aesthetics if you are like
Yeah, we can do.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, because interesting.
I mean, it's not something I know a lot about, and anyway, to be honest, it's not something I put a whole
Yeah,
lot of thought in.
I mean, because what I was thinking, like, so like you love BJJ, right? Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and you love that stuff, and I would not want to like force you to like get into like medicine and do all that research, right? Even though I know world could have been a better place since you are so smart, bro.
Thanks.
Your contribution to medicine would be like great, but still, I want to like give you freedom to like do your thing, man. Like enjoy life. Don't force
No,
yourself. Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I do think when I honestly reflect on my own life that like a lot of the choices that lead me to prefer like doing BJJ over like say when I'm 18, studying really hard, doing my UK cat and doing medicine or something. I think a lot of those reasons do stem from, or a lot of the explanation stems from like voices in myself about like putting my concerns and priorities in the wrong places, valuing the wrong sorts of things. And it's not to say that it's wholly bad, right? There are good things about BJJ as well, but I do think that I do think that there's like an obligation to do other things for like other people that's been skirted in like focusing on one thing rather than another, and that is like a bad that the best version of me like wouldn't do that.
I think you're being too hard on yourself, man. I mean, like this is the thing, right? Like there's a movie called Lady Bird. It's a great movie. It won a lot of awards and stuff. And she tells her mother, what if this is me? What if this is the best version of me? Are you going to accept me the way I am right now? Rather than telling me to like do this, go into this field, do this. I am disappointed at you and stuff like that. So I think sometimes, I mean, sure, if someone is like a literal horrific asshole, then yeah, they should they should improve themselves. But if someone is not an asshole and they are just living their life their own way, right? Like why be disappointed at them? Why be disappointed at yourself, right? Why not just be chill about it? Like, okay, I just like this stuff, that's it. And maybe too much reflection is overthinking, right? Like, just enjoy the stuff that you enjoy, man. In my view, that's the thing. Yeah, you should do. So if you enjoy BJJ, just enjoy it, man. Like, why be hard on yourself about that? So I suppose next question, right? I should focus on next question. We are on this topic too much. Interesting. Where's my notepad? Yeah, I mean, some of my questions are on my notepad because, like, some of the topics that I wanted to discuss are on my notepad because, it's just notepad just helps. So here's something I also want to talk to you about God and feelings and stuff. Like the way I approach God and stuff is different than I think most theists approach it. Like there is this approach that truth is valuable, right, in and of itself, and stuff like that, and seeking truth is valuable. And I mean, yeah, sure, but if like truth gave me a lot of sadness, I think I like it is similar to what Cain probably thinks too. Like I think Cain when I watched his like uh I watched him answering philosophy survey, and he was like okay with going into the experience machine, you know of like great experiences, and I think agreed with him. Like, you know I would not want to be that sad due to like discovering all this stuff from like philosophy or biology and stuff like that. So what do you think about this whole truth, feelings, and God?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I tend to think of again what we care about being true is kind of, it's not it's going to be dependent on our kind of like, goals, beliefs, and desires that we have again. So there's this kind of like subjective essentially subjective like nature, you might say, of like truth seeking, as it were. You're never just going to be some kind of like weird impartial fact machine that just cares about like all the different ways there are of counting the things on my table right now or something. But yeah, I mean, and then when it comes to the emotions, right, I guess the emotions play that role in kind of like regulating the things that we care about when it comes to seeking truth and so forth. And so then in playing that role, I tend not to think it's wrong to take emotional considerations into account when it comes to evaluating like reasons to be a theist or an atheist. Like I think that emotional reasons count in favor of people abandoning God belief, particularly if there's like, cases of like emotional or spiritual abuse involved in the ministries people are in. And emotional reasons can also like justify, like seeking God belief if emotional reasons like drive a need to quench an existential angst or something like that. It's not like a bad thing on my view.
I mean, the thing is like, so I'm an inclusivist. I think you, Nathan, as an agnostic, and Graham Opie, atheist, and all these people, I think they are going to heaven as long as they are like cool and chill. They are not like hurting others, harming others. They are not causing suffering to others. I think they are all going to heaven. You are all going to heaven. I suppose that helps, with emotions and stuff like depression. I heard you were suffering from depression. You are suffering from depression or something.
I mean, like I've gone through periods my whole life, sort of thing, got enough. So
yeah. So I think in some sense this God feels like a kind of a person who loves you even when the whole world hates you. I mean, there's a comfort in that, right? And God will save you, right? There's a comfort in like universalism and optimism that I do not get from, personally, I do not get from anything else. I do not think like cognitive behavior therapy or like reading Sartre or Camus or some of these philosophers who are agnostic or atheist is going to help personally that much to me, because like when I see suffering, right, when I see a lot of disasters, you know it really impacts me a lot. Like it's weird, even in fiction, when I see characters dying, it's just it's just like in my mind, I just hope that, yeah, hey, there's heaven, they are in heaven, those characters are in heaven, they are okay, they are like everything is going to be okay. So, and when I believe that everything is going to be okay, there's just something so comforting rather than just hoping that everything is going to be okay, I suppose. So, I mean, when it comes to like arguments for the existence of God, personally, I think they do something, like they do kind of push people. Like I personally, I do get somewhat pushed by Joshua Rasmussen's work, you know, but I do understand like the criticism that agnostic and atheist people offer is they they make sense too, so I do understand that. But again, my credence is like my currently, I think my currently credence in God belief, like belief in God, is like zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8, maybe something like that. It never raises to like, I mean, if I'm like very sad, then maybe then maybe my credence in God is like 1, because I'm really sad and I really want someone to help me, I suppose. I mean, in those cases. But the thing is, like, when I see you, when I watch your videos, right, when I watch you and James Fodor like kind of criticize and all that stuff, personally, like, does make sense, right? Like some of the stuff that you guys are saying, some of your considerations, and in some sense I'm frustrated by God, right? Like, why the fuck do you not reveal yourself, you annoying scumbag, right? Like, please reveal yourself, man. Like, please show that you exist, because everybody is so confused, right? Everybody is so sad and people are like killing each other for beliefs, right? Like, so, like some people literally have this tradition, right, like where they believe that when you offend God's dignity, you have committed a crime of infinite severity and you deserve infinite punishment. And I mean, isn't that kind of aligned with like beheading someone for blasphemy, killing someone for apostasy? Like, I mean, technically they are in, their belief is internally maybe consistent, right, with their tradition. And this stuff kind of, and when I see this stuff happening, when I see people like dying of apostasy or blasphemy and all this stuff, and people are sad or confused or angry about stuff, I kind of do wish that he just stopped the divine being, he just stopped being hidden and just reveal himself, and like perhaps send like some guardian angels, superheroes or stuff like Superman or something, you know to like maybe at least give people some hope that people can at least there's more than natural stuff, right? So I suppose, like, what do you think about this kind of, I suppose, my thought process or my view, you know can you relate or something?
Yeah, I can definitely relate. Like, I think these questions are difficult things for people who are theists to sort of grapple with. I tend to think that it's actually kind of internal to theism that grappling with these sorts of questions is true of Christian. So it, um, the sort of Christian and Jewish tradition doesn't kind of respond to these sort of concerns that people have by just saying that God just does arbitrarily appear to people, give them signs or whatever. I mean, there's so much stuff in the Psalms and in like the book of Job and so forth, where it's actually, you know, internal to these religions that people kind of have questions about their suffering or the absence of God. And the question is sort of the answer to the question is sort of mystery or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm going to have any particularly satisfactory answers other than to say that part of what I think religious life is grappling with those questions as part of like a faith community and your tradition with your religious texts and things like that as well. And I do think that there's a somewhat satisfactory philosophical answer in that, you know, so again, internal to theism, supposing this God exists, but they're kind of like hidden for whatever reasons that we're not quite sure about. Well, then maybe we kind of have these moral obligations to each other to kind of create an environment where we try to learn about God together and we try to understand, you know, we try to kind of like help each other out in figuring this whole thing out. And I mean, it's not going to be completely satisfactory and there's going to be problems with it, but I think that that's at least a positive outlook that someone can have on the situation as a theist.
Yeah, you know, what you said is like extremely important, right? Like, here's the thing, this is why I am in some sense, I mean, I would have been inclusivist even if God like revealed to everybody, like I am a universalist, just that's it. So I would not want God to like torture someone for like saying, you know, I don't see you, even though God is like literally standing in front of that person. And yeah, that person is being like stubborn or something, but still that person does not deserve eternal conscious torture or annihilation or something like that, right? But the thing is, like, I am okay with agnostic people and atheist people talking, arguing, and like, even if they die in that their state of atheism or agnosticism, I'm perfectly fine with that. I think they'll be okay as long as, yeah, as I said earlier, as long as they are chill, cool, they are not hurting people, you know, they are not violating property rights and stuff like that. So, but what bothers me, right, is like when I see some of the apologists and even sometimes philosophers like saying, we just refuted the arguments that atheists have brought. Like when people use this kind of language of like, we refuted atheists, agnostics, or like when people use this kind of stuff where, how the fuck they have so much confidence, man? Like how can you say like you have like refuted? Like, no, you did not refute anything, right? Like that's what I'm thinking. Like when this language of refutation and stuff like personally seems really condescending to me in general. Like, does it feel to you the same? Like when someone says like problem of evil is just emotional, you know, it like hurts a lot, you know, like fuck you. Like, no, it's not. It's the thing is like, people do not understand the implication of what they're saying. If problem of evil is just emotional problem, then you know what, God can perhaps send you to like 1,000-year torture, literal torture, right? I mean, if it's just some kind of an emotional thing, then fucking adjust with everything, right? Like no amount of suffering is going to like do anything to you. You are just going to say, hey, I love God. Like, but why? That's not how anybody behaves in general. If someone hurts you, you say to that person, and like that's, I think, you know, Benjamin Blake Speed Watkins, right? And I think he posted a great meme where like where when a cop does not stop a crime from happening, but like God does the same thing. People are okay with God, right? but people are not okay with cops doing that. And I mean, personally, theists need to do, I mean, I believe in God. I think personally theists need to do more than saying problem of evil is just emotional. And I've watched your interview with Daniel speak, and in some sense, I was still not satisfied with his answer. Like, he makes this distinction, right? Like, he still made this distinction where someone, when they are suffering, they need support, not just some kind of philosophical argument. But I mean, that, like, that still sounds to me like you are saying that someone's emotional experience of that much horror is not enough for to for themselves, from their perspective, to reject theism. But I personally think that if someone who has like suffered violently, right, from either a natural disaster or some other person, right, and if they do not believe, then I mean, I kind of do wish they would believe too, like, if, so that they can have some relief, right, some kind of comfort that they will get justice, that they are going to be okay, you know, the criminal that hurt them will be punished. Again, the criminal will be punished in a temporary hell, not eternal hell. So yeah, but still the criminal will be punished, you know. And if there is a natural disaster, like, I hope they believe it is such that they can get relief. But i do not I do not want to fucking force anyone to believe because I just refuted some argument or something. Like, no, no, don't believe because of some some yeah, sorry. I suppose, can you relate to this too? I mean, I'm sorry, this is just sometimes I say too much sometimes. Sorry about that. But yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I guess I can relate to it. And yeah, I dislike the kind of sectarian attitude to apologetics that is taken by a lot of people. I think it's a kind of vice of religion, and it kind of it shows where religion is missing something, right? If people can't empathize with those that disagree with them, they can't, they don't, if you're thinking that the people that disagree with you are just simply irrational or something like that, then I I think that kind of judgment stems from some kind of error where you've just not done your research into what the other side has to say, because it's not like that there's really smart people on both sides with good things to say, and it just isn't, even if you're very convinced and you think you can provide all these reasons, it isn't the case that navigating all of the literature and stuff just is this easy, clear-cut, decisive thing. And so people should be approaching it with far more sort of acceptance for disagreement, and with like grace and charity, I think, towards those who disagree with them.
But some of them also believe it's immoral too, right? Like, some of them believe that you are suppressing the truth. Atheist, agnostic people are suppressing the truth or something. But that's just bullshit. Like, absolute bullshit. Like, no. Why?
Well, I think it would depend on the person's views quite heavily. Like, they might say that you're suppressing it, but it doesn't mean that you like know that you're suppressing it or something. It might just be that you've kind of made various moral choices, and those choices have led to you developing the kind of character over time that believes and rejects certain things. And so it's not like you're aware of all the relevant facts or something. Again, it's like the kind of way that sin affects things in that case is through a sort of lack, right? It's through a kind of a lack of awareness of all the relevant facts.
Yeah. But I mean, it still sounds bullshit to me. Like, no, they are not. No, atheist, agnostic are not suppressing the truth or anything. I mean, they're because the thing is, look, I was an atheist, right? In, like, I mean, sorry, I didn't tell this earlier, but I was indeed a person who was atheist. But slowly, kind of like work of like Joshua Rasmussen and like David Bentley Hart kind of like made me be more, compassionate and open to, theism, because I mean, they have a very optimistic view. Like both, I think Joshua Rasmussen and David Bentley Hart, both of them are universalists. I did not know that universalism is a position, right? So, yeah, they opened, they in some sense like um, opened up my mind, I suppose, or opened up, you know, my heart. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think I'm speaking too much. I feel like, you know, I don't know, but look, it was a conversation, right? Like a casual kind of chat. So I didn't think of it. I do not think of this as an interview. And, same with like when I did interview with like Ryan Mullins, I was doing a similar thing perhaps. But yeah. So I suppose my next question to you, like you were into like Jordan Peterson one time, right? And you were in like what did you find meaningful in what he was saying?
Yeah, that's a difficult one to answer. I think there's definitely something to the fact that he's kind of providing a framework for viewing reality that had answers to things, right? And that was what I didn't have, because everything was very in flux, and that meant that I didn't really have direction or understand how to be a person or who I was. And so I wanted, a framework that would be able to provide these simple answers. And that was one thing that was appealing about Peterson. I think there are other things that were appealing about him as well. One of them was that his way of viewing the world is sort of attached to, or purports to be attached to, like an intellectual understanding of reality. So it's attached to kind of engaging with various historical thinkers, thinking things through. And there's a kind of satisfaction that comes with like learning about who you are in light of these historical processes and the history of human thought, and like uncovering the way that the world is, and then aligning yourself with that. There's a sense of satisfaction in that, and I think that was a good thing from Peterson, and that similarly is why there's like a kind of appeal in him using things like the Bible stories to get people to sort of orient their lives, because there's a lot of deep meaning in those stories, and so it's not like all bad, but I definitely think that the fundamentalist strand of him just providing like a framework with answers is perhaps the dangerous part, right? Because there's like an excess there then, if you're not if there's some false beliefs in there, and if you're not evaluating like everything that he comes to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I do not have much opinion on Jordan Peterson, I suppose. I mean, I could relate to you. No, wait, can I relate to you? So when I think when someone like says that they were discovering, like you said earlier, you were discovering yourself, right? Or something like that. Like everything was a kind of a flux, and Jordan
Yeah,
Peterson like
mostly that I didn't have direction or constraint on my life. I didn't understand how to live, and that led me to a kind of like suffering.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I think it's quite common for people when they don't have like purpose or drive, or they can't situate themselves and they're disoriented, to feel this kind of listless sadness.
That's interesting. Perhaps maybe I'm in minority, because I always loved like music, movies, video games, and stuff. And the thing is, I never thought about this meaning and stuff. And like whenever someone like talks about meaning and like needing direction, I, like I would be thinking, okay, what are you looking for, my friend? Like there's a lot of great stuff, like that movie came out, like we can go to like mountain hiking. I mean, personally, I'm an introvert. I would just say to you, like, bro, if you love like mountain hiking, you can go there, that's great. And I mean, if you love coding, you can do that, you know, like direction, right? Like, yeah. What direction were you looking for? Like, what were you trying to look into, trying to get from that?
Well, I think, and this is for me and a lot of people with psychology similar to me, a lot of your suggestions there, it's like, like, yeah, like I could count to 1 billion, right? 1 second at a time. But I mean, like, why do it? And if um activities aren't like properly ordered within your psychological framework, like of the relevant things that lead to like a flourishing human life, so building good relationships, eating healthily, exercising, being intellectually stimulated, if all of the kind of reasons for doing things that are conducive to those things that lead to human flourishing are kind of knocked out, well then you're kind of a ship afloat at sea without a motor, just drifting. And
Ship
and you,
afloat at sea.
yeah, and you sort of, it feels like, you might as well be dead in that case. There really isn't much to be seen that's better about living, because it's all, vanity of vanities. And so what a framework I think that someone like Peterson is offering provides is it gives those reasons which then justify these other behaviors, like cleaning your room, like taking responsibility in a job. And that means that you can kind of like go about life as a part of a story that makes sense and is
Yeah.
meaningful, rather than just doing stuff and thinking it's all kind of pointless.
Okay, that's interesting, because I do not think that if some like so here's the thing, right? Like if there is some person and what he wants to do all his life is just play video games, listen to music, and watch movies, and like have delicious food. I don't know what's wrong with that. And I don't know what's
Well, I think some
pointless
people
about
think that
that.
way, right? Yeah, I think some people think that way. It just doesn't work for me. Like,
Yeah.
um, I like, maybe some people genuinely are like that. So I don't want to make some rule that people just aren't, people can't be like that or something. But
Yeah.
I tend to think that, if you like move me to a particular city, if you give me like a lot of money, I can make all these problems, because like the mind is its own place and can make a hell of heaven. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I think it does matter what I think for someone like me, the framework that everything is situated within, and like orienting you as a person, is quite an important thing.
Yeah, because you were talking about like things that lead to flourishing, and those were like very specific, like intellectual satisfaction, relationships, and stuff like that. And that to me sounds to me very virtue ethics kind of thing, right? uh
But
Courage.
I'm not sure though. What I'm not sure about is that those just are these facts that make a life good, because I think that someone like me can sort of have those things, and if the story isn't right, then they can be like a miserable, resentful mess through the whole thing. Like, you can have the sort of ideal partner who, but you can like screw it up because you're bitter and horrible towards them, and
Yeah.
that's purely a result of your internal state and what you're telling yourself about the situation you're in, and how you're understanding your relationship to the world, rather than it is just about the kind of um situation that you're kind of nested in, if that makes sense.
uh, Interesting stuff, you know. I mean, so if you had like, what kind of life do you want, Nathan?
I couldn't say exactly, you know. I mean, I know that I do, but I'm better off when I have projects that I think are valuable and that I can work towards pursuing those projects. And I'm better off when I can be intellectually stimulated. So doing things. So when I'm doing things that I don't think are valuable, like that's a real problem. So I find it really hard to work in certain kinds of jobs. Like they cause me a lot of psychological pain just because I don't see the work as like being useful to society or other people. It's just like I'm only doing it because I get a salary out of it, and that just doesn't kind of cut it for me. Um,
So I mean, I think Nathan, bro, you sound like you are too hard on yourself always, man. Like you need to find something to contribute to society. Like it's like you want to find a place in this society,
yeah,
right?
that's broadly right. Yeah, yeah.
But I'm like, personally, I'm more of an individualistic kind of person. Like if you are like literally, I mean, if someone is like literally enjoys grass touching forever, do it, man. Just
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if someone does, then that's like great for someone, right? But the problem is that I
yeah,
kind of that's not me, you know. Like I can't
yeah,
just like I can't just adopt a desire to
yeah,
touch
of
grass all
course.
the time. So yeah, like
Yeah, I can
and that's the
understand.
problem that I'm faced with is my own psychological landscape of well,
Yeah.
how do I live with myself then?
I like have you been to some therapists or something?
I've been to various forms of therapy throughout my life. Yeah,
That did not help.
not really. I found I've not found a lot of stuff very useful. I have found psychedelics useful.
Yeah, psychedelics. Great. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I'm happy for you. I mean, I'm worried about psychedelics because I mean, I have like anxiety issues and stuff, you know. So yeah, but so psychedelics helped you, right?
Yeah, they help for a few weeks after, right? But I
Then
think that yeah, I think it needs to be integrated with some kind of therapy in order to and maybe done like regularly, like every 6 months or something, in order to treat people like myself, I guess. But I you know I tend to think that these things like depression aren't just you know they're not like it's not like you've got some pathogen or something or you've got some thing that is depression. I think that the depression sort of is a product of a bunch of these lifestyle factors and like personal character voices and how you live and things you do and the situation you're nested in and how you relate to other people and all these complex things. It's like a lifestyle disease in a sense, as well as obviously having a physical basis in your biology. And so um you know any like treatment for someone who's in that position is like a kind of lifestyle treatment as a whole, and that's where it's kind of like a religious thing because there's like you know almost like a sense of self spiritual transformation in dealing with one's own pathologies and then the pathologies that emerge at the level of like the family and at the level of the community and you know the nation state and so on.
yeah, I mean,
So
since I mean, I personally believe in a loving, just compassionate God. So I think you will find something, Nathan, and you will find something like infinitely always. You will enjoy your life always, in my view. You're going to have a great time someday. And by someday, I do not mean never, because you know, uh, like I mean, I heard this dialogue in a movie, like the person says, "So you said someday, so someday means never." But no, I mean it. I genuinely mean that you will find what you're looking for, in my view. Yeah. So that would be Great. I would be happy for you,
Well,
man.
let's hope so. Yeah, I'd be happy
Yeah.
in that case, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One, I suppose, what's left? Is there anything left? Have you thought about like hopeful universalism? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, hopeful universalism, I tend to find a bit strange. I don't really, I mean, maybe people just aren't confident enough in the belief. So it's like, well, just be a universalist. But I guess I wouldn't describe myself as a hopeful universalist. Like I'd say, um, in insofar as I'm believing in Christianity, like I just am a universalist, I would say. But then I have these problems where sometimes I just don't think that there is an afterlife at all, right? Because so then
Yeah.
it's not like because I think hopeful universalism is more to do with like within given that God exists and that there's an afterlife, the outcome that I hope for is universalism. Whereas I think it's kind of inappropriate for me if I was to describe myself as a hopeful universalist, because it's kind of like, well, given that God exists, I'm certain of universalism, but
Yeah.
what I'm not sure of is whether or not God exists and this place is any kind of a reality at all.
Yeah. I find hopeful universalism frustrating personally. Like I am a universalist, right? Like the full-fledged, you know, uh, full-fledged card-carrying, you know, um, universalist. Sorry, I have OCD, so universalist. Yeah, card-carrying. Uh, I will edit this part out. Sorry, card-carrying.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is the thing why, right? This is the thing why I did not wanted to, like, be on live. Yeah.
Right.
Full-fledged card carrying uh, universe. Like it's weird. It sounds so robotic, right? As if my brain is malfunctioning, and I think maybe that's what's happening really. So yeah, full-fledged card. Maybe that's what's really
maybe that's
happening.
what's happening.
I mean, James Fodor would probably say this, right? Like he's our friend reductive naturalist,
Yeah.
So brain is probably somewhat malfunctioning and shit's happening, you know. Do I edit this part out because this just got funny? Maybe I shouldn't. I probably will not.
You can watch it back and see if you want it in there or not.
Would you want it, or
I don't mind either way. It's my only concern would be if it's something that like you'd be upset with people seeing as something if you don't want people, like if you're worried about people, seeing you get distracted by your OCD or whatever, and
yeah,
then that's up to you. But I'm absolutely fine. I don't mind. Like I've got all sorts of.
I suppose I will not edit this because I'm also too lazy to edit stuff. So yeah. So yeah, a card carrying full-fledged universalist. Okay, now things just got tranquil, So the thing that frustrates me about that hopeful thing is that, so you are hoping that God is not a not a monster. You are hoping that God does not just execute people. Like, and in annihilationism, technically God. So of course there are different views of like annihilationism. One view is that God just like only gives conditional immortality, and that's one view. A second view is I think execution as a punishment, so that's, I think in both of these cases I think God is a monster, and eternal conscious torture is, I think, the most monstrous thing in my. Yeah. So hopeful universalism just sounds so really empty to me, like do you know Philip Muller, by the way? Mueller, I think.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think he posted a great comment on someone who said like she said, I am a hopeful universalist, but I believe in eternal hell. And Philip Mueller replied, this is the fastest tweet I realized that goes this is the fastest tweet that went from based to cringe, like real fast, and that's the thing what I think about hopeful universalism, really. Yeah, it just sounds cringe to me. So yeah, I suppose, do you have any questions for me, Nathan? Like, please ask.
I think I'm all right because I've got dinner to go to soon as well. So
Yeah, sure. Like, seriously, Nathan, thank you very much for this conversation. This was absolutely wonderful. I will send you the recording probably today. You can upload it on your channel if you like.
Just let me know when you do it, and I'll drive people over to yours first, and then I'll put it up on mine after a couple of weeks or a month or so.
Yeah, sure. I might upload this today or maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, no
I don't
problem.
know.
Whenever's fine with you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nathan. This was wonderful. I hope you enjoyed our chat. Oh, by the way, stick in the background for just a while.
Okay.
I have to ask your feedback. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Just a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.